Great. Well, we're going to now move in focus, and we're going to talk about careers and employability. So I've got some brand new guests in the studio, although, Sarah, you've met before already. So, Sarah, I won't welcome you again, but I will welcome you, Marie De Silva and Lee Folks from our Careers and Employability Service. So we've been talking a fair bit about this sort of things, and many students are looking to study to change careers, and you guys offer some amazing support that we've been already focusing on. So I'd like to cover sort of the range of stuff in terms of both stuff that students can get out of you in terms of guidance and stuff, but also this idea about stuff that's embedded in the curriculum already, and the ways that we're actually enabling students to then take their qualifications and be career ready. So, Marie, people study for lots and lots of different reasons. We've already looked at those things. What are some of the main motivations that you see, and how many of them are really career focused?
I think obviously a lot of the students that come and use our services and that interact with us through forums and webinars are sort of very much motivated by personal career development. Yeah. So either wanting to progress in their current workplace, because we know a lot of students within the school are either, say, working in schools, in the education sector in some shape or form, working maybe with children, young people, working in sport and fitness. So they're either wanting to progress with their current employer or within the sector, or maybe wanting to get into that sector if they're working somewhere else. Yeah. And sometimes it's a mix of personal and career development. So, yeah.
Brilliant. And share your career aspirations if you would like to using our Wordle. So that's where you need to put 3 things in. You can put 1, 2 or 3 in, but you need something in each box. So if you can't think of the rest, just put a dot in and your results will submit as well. So let us know what your career aspirations are, or you can put some in the chat and we'll take some of those on board as well. Sarah, what are your sort of ideas about studying, and what do you see in terms of students with their motivations to study?
I see a lot of different students because I'm an education student, and I see a lot of students that are wanting to get into teaching for the first time, get into maybe being a teaching assistant for the first time. So there's all of that, and there's a great deal of students within the education that are mums that want to do something that fits in with their lifestyle. So there's quite a lot of that motivation, and to be honest, that was my motivation as well. My motivation was to kind of get myself out this slump of I'd say just being a mum. There's never just being a mum, but to get myself out of that and do something and actually be a productive member of society. But there's so many that have sort of accidentally fallen into being a teaching assistant, working in a school, helping in school, and discovered their love for it and actually want to take it further. So there is so many different motivations going on.
Yeah. And Lee, what do you see in terms of the demographic? Because we know that OU students are united by the fact they're all really different.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the unifying thing, actually. All our students are very different. I guess some of the common things that I see when I speak to students are students want to talk about their ideas. They're keen to kind of share their story. This is where I am now, but I've got this dream, I've got this vision, like Sarah says. I just want to, how do I get there? And so they're really keen and motivated to do something and change their life. So in many respects, that situation is very similar across all the students that I speak to. And actually, you know, I think for us and for our service, it's just really inspiring to hear those stories and to really help students and enable them to think, well, okay, how are we going to get there? And here's some support that we can offer you.
Because as you say, so many students are already sort of perhaps in one sector where they've got an awful lot of skills. I mean, they're not sort of students in the typical sense of young people who don't have that life experience. Very often our students have something that they could transfer, I guess, to a different context. But sometimes it's hard to think. I mean, I bet with being just a mum, you don't sort of recognise that you've then got this time management ability to juggle all of these skills that you've picked up from one area that I bet have been so useful in studying.
Oh, they really have, my time management skills. Because when you're a mum, you've got to get your child from here to there, to there, to there, to there. You've got to make sure they're dressed. You've got to make sure they're fed. All of those things that you do as a matter of course, actually you can apply to your studies. You go, okay, right, use this time management thing. I'm going to study here. I'm going to do family stuff here. And you do it like that. And it's so useful. And there's so many other skills that you can draw out of what you do in your day-to-day life.
And it's the same principle, I guess, with some of the OU skills and teaching material that are then applied to that career sector as well.
Yes, definitely, yeah.
So, Aisha, what are people saying about their career aspirations and what they want them to do? I know we've spoken a little bit about this beforehand.
We spoke earlier, and it was fantastic to see what people were saying. Ron said he was just studying for personal development and moving forward with his own goals and aspirations. On the board, I've put up some others as well. So Louise is looking just to do a career change. Tara is studying to fight the system, which is fantastic. Kareem said earlier that he's previously been an economist and wants to move into studying sport and fitness and get a career out of that as well. And Naomi's just looking to expand her knowledge, which is fantastic. And I'm sure with all these ideas, and even if you haven't got any ideas, you get inspiration as you go along as well.
No, absolutely. There's plenty in store. So how do you guys then help students to achieve their career goals? No pressure, but I must ask the question.
If we had a magic wand, that'd be great. We could just wave it and it will happen. I think most people know, like students know, it's a bit tougher than that. I think the first thing we do, we provide a space. So within our consultations that we offer, we allow students to kind of share that vision. What is it? What do I really want? And actually, one of the most difficult things initially is, well, what can I offer? To extract those skills that you've gained during study, and actually to someone to hear that idea. And people sometimes students are worried that am I allowed that idea? I want to have a really what might seem a drastic career change, say from the the economist to sport. But actually, that's quite normal. I think most people's career changes can be quite kind of divergent in that respect. So I think how we support students is we provide that supportive space. We listen to them. We help them to understand them, help them to get them understand themselves a little bit better, to their skills, their interests, and what their motivations are, what kind of is important to them, what are their values. And we take that and we work with the student, and it's like, well, okay, let's think about how that's going to progress into some of your aspirations. And then in more detail, it's around, well, what are the entry points for that career? How can you find out more about that career? What do you need to do? What actions do you need to take? What work experience might you need? What additional training or qualifications in addition to where you study does that apply? So I think students like to know, well, is this a good idea? Can I do it? Is it possible? And how do I start to do that? So it's kind of it's an empowering experience, I think, in terms of realising that dream or aspiration and moving from sort of A to B.
Okay, now that sounds great, but there's not much practicalities in that. So I'm thinking, oh, that sounds wonderful, but how does that happen?
Well, ultimately the student has to make that happen. So actually, how do people achieve things? Well, they have belief. So part of it is helping the students to believe that idea can be made possible. What specific action do I need to take? What research do I need to undertake? What resources do I need to read? What do I need to learn about this idea in order to understand that role or understand that sector and understand, well, where do I apply for roles? What are they looking for? How do I write convincing applications? So actually the nuts and bolts of the recruitment process and the labour market then come into play, which is also kind of fundamentally to make those sort of dreams, aspirations work. It's kind of the knowledge is power really when it comes to careers.
Brilliant. Now, I'd like to talk about some specifics because we've got some things to show people because in addition to this holistic support that's both embedded and also supported with things like, consultations, which we'll talk about a little bit later, you've got this fantastic opportunity hub thing, which sounds great. So what is it, Marie?
So Opportunity Hub is our vacancy platform, and you can find virtually every type of vacancy on there. Yeah. So if somebody during the course of their studies is maybe looking for another job, they can find full-time positions on there, they can find part-time roles, graduate opportunities when they finish. There are also opportunities there for people with more experience as well, so it's not just for those who are sort of like new into a sector or sort of younger students. And we also have a wide range of voluntary opportunities there because I think one of the key things we mentioned, Lee mentioned it there about work experience. Yeah. For students who aren't in the sector and want to get into it, like the student that AJ mentioned there is sort of moving from economics to sport, you've got to get that experience, and voluntary opportunities and organisations are a fantastic way to do that. So our Opportunity Hub is a sort of portal that students can go into. They can set their preferences, so they can find out what opportunities are coming up in their local area. And then we produce like a bulletin every month with some of the key examples for each faculty of some of the vacancies that we've got.
Let's take a look. So this is great because it's got things like employer spotlight, featured job opportunities, and there's a lot on there as well. So that's great to be able to see.
Yeah. So it's a really sort of quick, easy way. If you haven't got time to go in and spend a lot of time looking, that'll just give you a quick flavour of what's around each month.
And that pops up on module websites, doesn't it?
On the study subject sites.
On the study subject site, it pops up on there.
Yeah.
So it's really, really easy to access.
Yeah.
Now, who can access the service and for how long? For the Opportunity Hub.
So it's,
Everybody, yeah?
Yeah, everywhere. It's all registered students. And then once the students graduated, they can kind of re-register, create a new set of login details and then access Opportunity Hub after graduation as well. So it's kind of continuous support really. Yeah. But if you're a registered student, whether you're just about to start a module or qualification or whether you're studying, you can access it.
And even after they've completed their studies, don't there? There's a window of up to 3 years, isn't there, where students can access the service.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a big selling point, I think. I think a lot of students think it just ends once they graduate and we just let them go. So if this kind of helps promote that aspect of the service as well, we're keen to support students when they might need help the most actually making that transition. 3 years following the completion of their study.
Brilliant. And there's a link to the Opportunity Hub that's in the chat, and that includes also a virtual tour of the platform, so you can go in and see what's there as well. So do check that out, or save that link for later if you want to keep watching as well. OK, so we've had a look at the Opportunity Hub. Is that all we need to talk about with that one before we move on to the next area?
Yeah, I think that's the main things there. So
the vacancy bulletin, that sounds exciting. Yeah. And this is a Wells initiative as well. So we've seen how students can access that as well. And also the fact that it's important that there are both voluntary areas as well as the paid for ones as well. OK, so we've seen where we can access that. We've also got OU Online Talent Connect. Lots of big words here.
I know.
What if students forget some of this? I mean, is there a sort of central place they can go and find all this? Or do they need to remember it now?
No. Our website is probably the key place to look or following us on social media. Yeah. Because every time we've got really new opportunities, activities coming up, we'll put them out there. And Opportunity Hub as well, sort of having a look in there, all the events and activities and things like that going on, students will be able to find out too.
Many different things going on in there. And you have virtual careers fairs and stuff,
which
don't
is
you? Oh, sorry.
That long name, long name,
I've attended one of those and it was fantastic.
Brilliant.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So there's so many different opportunities for students to connect with you. Yeah.
Brilliant. We've got lots of teaching questions on our hot desk, so let's just go and see if there's anything in terms of careers that we can help with.
Yeah. So Sarah has quite a specific question, so we'll see if our guest can help. She says, I'm going to be studying a BA in primary teaching, but after I finish my course, in order for this to happen, I need to do GCSE in Maths and English. But I have functional skills, level 2 in English and Maths, which is equivalent to grade C. Would that be accepted, or does it have to be face grade C GCSE?
Well, quite a specific question. If you can't answer that, I know someone who can.
I can have a go. So. I think there's a kind of a wide range of qualifications, and I think the GCSE equivalents can always cause confusion because there isn't just a big, well-defined list that everybody agrees to when it comes to different initial teacher training providers. In the case of functional skills, although the level might be equivalent, the size of the qualification isn't generally enough. So functional skills are generally not accepted by initial teacher training providers, not because it's not necessarily the right level, but the size of the qualification is slightly too small. What I'd encourage that student to do is contact the providers that they might be thinking about for their initial teacher training, and ask them to provide them with information about what are the GCSE equivalents. Sometimes it's an online test that can take place. Sometimes it's particular modules. Sometimes it might be a resit, potentially. They might take the IGCSEs. So I think initially speak to the provider. They'll know what they accept, and that's probably the best starting point because then you've got something more fixed to work on. But the functional skills generally are not accepted.
Oh, he's done very well. So we'll give you another question.
Okay.
Fantastic question in the chat from Sophie as well. Do our guests have any advice about how to become a primary school teacher? And she puts in brackets, any ideas how to increase employability in the sector?
Good question.
I think make sure you're familiar with the entry requirements, understand the routes into teaching. I'm going to do a bit of a shout out here, but we produce, the Careers Employability Services, if you can see that on camera. So we produce a range of guides. So we've just produced our new guides for 2019-20. On our website, you might still see the 18-19. So those will be going up over the next week. But we have 5 nation guides because the rules and the information is different for each nation. But in there, you'll find information about the entry requirements, the different options for training, the routes into teaching, how to build your work experience. And also really just, general advice, frequently asked questions that we get asked. So they're a really good kind of one-stop shop. And then if you need further support, kind of contact our service and we can talk you through it. So I think that's kind of the key resource, a bit of self, promotion there. Why not? Why not?
Say that I looked at the guide for me and I found it really, really helpful. So I would highly recommend it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I think work experience, make sure if you've not been in a classroom, it is the key thing, providers expect that, but actually kind of makes you test the idea, is this really right for me? Sometimes the vision of teaching might not always match a reality, so get in the classroom, get a range of experiences, more than one school, and it's not just school, teaching, it can be outside of there as well, it could be scout groups, after school clubs, anywhere where you can kind of, get exposed to the age range you might be thinking about.
There are some rules and regulations though, aren't there? I mean, do you have to be DBS checked or anything, or can you just turn up at a school and offer to help?
Good question. You can't DBS check yourself because we get asked that. So a provider has to do it, whether it's a school or if you're getting like a placement for a university, they'll help arrange that. Sometimes it is more complicated if it's a kind of a regulated activity, because if you're just observing, that's not necessarily regulated. Right. So you might not need it, depending on what type of activity you do and if you're just being shown round or something like that. But if it's more in depth and you've got more lengthy contact with children, then yes, it's normally you would need a DBS, and that the school where you're at would normally arrange that, but you might have to contribute to the cost.
Brilliant. That's really, really good. And this is modelling exactly the sort of thing you would go through with students, which is great for people to see, because you're doing it in a really friendly, helpful and useful way. HJ, have we answered those 2 questions? We'll come back for more.
Yeah, we've really happy with the answers for questions. I know there's some other stuff going on in the chat as well, so maybe we could come back to that in a bit.
OK, we will, because I didn't quite finish the discussion I was trying to have about this Online Talent Connect and the various fairs that you've got on, because you've got one coming up soon, 5th to 7th of November as well. So we put the link in the chat to the video as well for the OU Online Talent Connect. There's 74 organisations coming to your fair. Yes. How did you manage to pull that off?
Well, we have a fantastic employer engagement team who are based up in Nottingham, and they've been working really, really hard. Yeah. And I think it's a testament to the fact that so many employers want to interact with OU students. Because they see them as a fantastic source of sort of potential employees or as volunteers, and so having that opportunity, it works well for employers as well, because they don't have to come out and travel to another part of the country, spend the whole day there, put up stands and all the rest of it. It works well for them as well as for our students. So so now, employers across all different sectors.
In the chat, people might not know what the fair is. So what, in a brief sort of summary, is the fair?
So we have all these different employers there who will each have their own little booths. Yeah. So in the booths you'll find...
And where is it then?
So it's all online.
Yeah.
There'll be a link, and so anyone can come in during the days that it's on, visit at any time. Yeah. Within the booths there'll be a space to chat with employers. You'll have maybe presentations, videos, different materials, etc. like that, so that people can find out about what that organisation is offering, the sort of opportunities that they have, but also ask questions that are relevant to their situation. Brilliant. And then we have a general networking space, don't we, where students can interact with each other and with the employers and with our team. We've got like an auditorium there, so there are different live presentations going on as well as recorded ones. So there's something for everyone, really. And
as a student, it's quite an exciting thing to do, because it's a virtual place, so you don't actually have to go anywhere. Yeah. You could just be there, and it's so good. Really good, yeah. And
HJ's just put the link in the chat for that, so you can check that out. And it's the 5th to the 7th of November. But you can register from the 1st of October. So how might students do that?
So they can go on to Opportunity Hub, which again, hopefully we'll have the link there for them. Just put their details in there, and then they'll get sort of sent their information through. So we usually produce a guide for each of our fairs, so that, because we appreciate students are very time poor all the time. So you may not be able to visit sort of all the employers there, so you might need to be quite strategic and find out, you know, when different employers are going to be available and who you want to see, because obviously with that many employers, you're not going to be able to go around them all. So, so, you know, you can use your time well and strategically.
And I've got a list of some of the employers, because you've got some of the big graduate employers, which is really, really important. But there's a really impressive range of people on here. BBC, Barclays, National Graduate Development Programme, National Trust, I mean, there's a huge range there as well.
Yeah. I mean, last year we had a fair specifically aimed at sort of voluntary sector, not-for-profit. So we work with all different employers across all different sectors, sort of corporate, private, public sectors. So there's lots of opportunities there for students to find out what's available, and for voluntary opportunities as well.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Perfect. OK, so check that out, 5th to the 7th of November. Register from the 1st of October, and you can do that by looking at the Opportunity Hub also. So we've covered lots of things already, but the one most important thing that I think so many students want to know about is the one-to-one guidance that you guys offer, because that is so, so useful. Every student is different with different aspirations and ideas. And, you know, like with disabilities, one profession can have very different areas as well. So, Lee, can you talk to us about the one-to-one guidance that we offer?
Sure, yeah. I think I probably touched on a few things already. The main thing I'll say is that it's a dedicated space, so we give up to 45 minutes for a consultation. It can happen over email or telephone or Skype, or it can kind of be a mixture of those. And you can have as many consultations as you want. So sometimes students think we've got to squeeze it all into one session. So I always tell students at the start, you can speak to us as much as you like. We encourage that. It's good to kind of talk to students again. Always recommend to kind of engage with this early on. If you've got an idea or you're worried about something relating to your career, sort of don't hold back, get in touch with us. Students kind of regulate, well, what to expect, because for many students, actually, this is their first time, potentially, that they've engaged with a career service, so it's not always obvious what we do and what to expect. It's not an interview, I would say. It's a supportive space, and so students can expect to be able to talk about their career ideas, get ideas, help generate new ideas. So very often the question is, well, what can I do with this degree? Where could it lead? So we help with that. And then the more practical things that we kind of mentioned before, well, what are the entry requirements? What do I need to learn about that particular career to understand how I might get into it? What's the sector like? How many jobs are there? Where do I need to apply for jobs? How do I actually make effective applications? So it's that whole range of questions that people have towards a career, trying to get a firmer answer to that and actually feel better about it. So students might say, I need to get some clarity, I can't see the wood for the trees, how do I get from A to B? So I like to think that that space for students allows students to get more clarity and more confidence, actually, that, you know, what I can do this. You know, if I can do where you study, I can also achieve my aspirations. So it's a space that I think hopefully makes students feel good about themselves and actually about what our service can do for them and support them, so that they can feel empowered. You know, I can do this. You know, so I think that's what I hope it gives them.
And it sounds like it might be a good idea to do that fairly early on, because in particular, if you don't know what those aspirations are, it sounds like you can help students sound out maybe what skills, what opportunities there are in certain sectors, because very often, you know, we think of a label, don't we? I want to be such and such, and we can be driven to do that without necessarily thinking about how much contact with humans or other animals that might involve, what amount of paperwork. There are all these various complexities, aren't there, that can have a massive impact on your day-to-day life.
And I think that's really important, because obviously OU students are obviously juggling so much. And so you have to think about how are you going to get experience if you need it. So not wait until you're in your final module and you think, OK, now I want to apply for teacher training, for example, but I haven't got the required experience. So, you know, or I maybe haven't got a certain qualification that I'm going to need for it. So that's where that sort of early planning, thinking about, OK, well, when's going to be a good time to get that experience, or if I do need to do some further study or do something else, when am I going to fit that in, so that then you can make that transition when you're in your final module, ready to go for the next step, knowing that you've done everything that you need to put yourself in the best position possible.
Yeah. And you also offer resources, which we're going to come on to in a second, but support for students through things like the interview process, and also recruitment as well, CVs, covering letters. I mean, all those key skills that, you know, some people may have written a covering letter, you know, 30, 40 years ago, and it might be very different to where you indent things now and different conventions. But you offer support for that also, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the types of things that people kind of associate with applying for roles, but that, I guess that's more complicated now, really. So there's assessment centres, video interviews, psychometric tests, the typical CVs, applications, speculative or applying for roles that are actually advertised. So the kind of whole range, really, of all the different ways that you need to apply for roles now. We've got experience with, we can help support with, and hopefully demystify it and give students confidence of how to perform well.
Yeah, and there's some great resources, because you might not necessarily need a consultation for something like that. You might just think, how do I write a CV? And you've got some really helpful, useful guidance about that.
So we've got CV builder tool, haven't we, that you can find on our website. We've got our career planning workbook and guide, which I think you've got a picture of there.
Yeah, so it's more than a single page, I promise. But we've had a team working very hard at this. So we've updated our current career planning workbook. The new guide is going to be called Your Career Planning Guide. It's going to be out on our website very soon. The old one's on it at the moment, it's still very good, but the new one's updated, and that actually includes a lot of information around the recruitment process, getting you to think about your skills, how to find out more about the labour market, get experience. So it puts all the kind of the career stuff you might need to think about into one handy guide. So it's a good place to kind of work through step by step. You don't have to do it all in one. But as Marie said, the website's the place to go, really. Lots of resources there to help get you started. Like, how do you write a CV? How do I write a cover letter? How do I approach personal statements? All these sorts of things. So I think a bit of self-help to start with the website is probably a good thing to do. And then if you need further support, kind of look at the forums, look at the webinars, and get in touch if you need to.
Brilliant. Now, people at home are saying that there's great support here, of course, if you're interested in teaching, but what about if you're interested in counselling or sports coaching and other things like that? And also, what if you want to work with children but not necessarily do it in a teaching context?
Yeah, absolutely. Happen to have a partner who's in that position where used to be a teacher and now does something different. There's a wide range of roles, like you say, just that are outside of teaching in a formal setting, but could be a different context. So we have ideas on how you can kind of expand that thinking. So you might want to be sort of an education officer, work somewhere. There's lots of different job titles in education. It gets a little bit confusing. So sometimes it's the same job, but a different job title. But certainly this idea of education alternatives, we've actually got a resource and a webinar on our website that kind of covers that topic in a lot of detail.
And even working with younger children?
Absolutely, yeah. So the kind of the whole age range, really, from sort of really young to a bit older teenagers, or if you want to work with adults, for example. So it's hard to kind of say this is the role that kind of typifies alternatives in education, but we've got lots of ideas on our website, which in our webinar, which give you here's some typical roles that you might want to think about and how you can find out more about them. But certainly I think it's quite common where students are thinking about education, but just not the classroom.
Brilliant. And last, because we're nearly out of time, Marie, I just wanted to ask about the webinars as well, because these are live, but also they're recorded, and there's plenty of value people can get out of those. Tell us about those.
So we have a sort of extensive programme of webinars and forums. So webinars, sometimes we will sort of approach a topic that we think, so like the one that Lee just mentioned about alternatives for education, where we'll put some material together and present that, and we'll record it as well, so students can either interact live if they're free, but if not, watch the recording. But equally, we'll team up with employers as well. So if there are organisations out there offering opportunities, whether it's graduate schemes or sort of volunteering roles, so we worked with, I think, 2 organisations last year to look at some of the skills and attributes required to work with children and young people. So we worked with an organisation for, I think, online mentoring, Brightside, and an action tutoring, I think was the other one.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So again, we'll sort of work often with people within the sector as well, so that it gives that opportunity to get perspectives from different organisations as well as our input. And we've got a new forum coming up, sort of themed all around teaching, education and alternatives. So very much approaching it. If you want to work in the classroom, great, but what else can you do within the sector? So we've got a forum coming up sort of around that theme, second half of November from the 11th
So
to
that's the
22nd.
11th to 22nd of November. And that is basically an online space again, but this is a place where you can put messages and get advice and information.
Yeah, and we'll have lots of other resources supporting that and ideas and things for that that students can look at.
Brilliant. And in the spring, I hear you've got a working with people thing, so that's going to be particularly relevant to everyone at home.
Yeah. So both of these forum areas are going to be sort of covering a lot of the sorts of areas that students might be thinking about or relate to.
Oh, but there's heaps there, isn't there? Lots and lots for students too. I'm very conscious we haven't talked too much, Sarah, in this, but we've had so much to cover, and you are joining us later, so I don't feel too bad about that. But I'm pleased your experiences have been really positive, as I hear so many other students have as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant. So the best thing to do, I guess, is to keep hold of some of those links that we've given you, but also just make sure you're regularly in contact. If you're a Facebook user, like the page. That way you'll keep up to date with stuff going on, and you can also visit the from Student Home, the module website, the Careers and Employability website also. Brilliant. Well, thank you all very, very much for a fantastic session. OK, so now we're going to have a break because I'm starving. So we're going to have a replay video about critical thinking. Now, there is never too early a time to start thinking critically. But in this next fun video, we've got Jill Clifton, who gives a really, really interesting way of starting to think critically. And I believe she's hopefully logging on into the chat so you can ask her all the questions as we go through that session. And then I'm going to show you a lovely video we made with the sport and fitness team about studying like a world-class athlete, with loads and loads of ideas about good food to eat while you're studying and about approaching your training in the way that often athletes approach a training programme. So that will give you hopefully some information that will be useful to you over the lunch break. We'll then be back in our next session to look at education studies very soon, and also on the Student Hub Live website the whole programme of today's activities is available, so you can dip in and out as much as you want to. But thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back in the live session, but do stay logged on and chat to Jill as you enjoy hopefully these next replays. See you soon.